So anyone who knows me knows I love Madonna. She is my queen, my everything. When I was in university, I would get up every day and watch the Confessions tour, learning how to dance from her, learning the choreography of Erotica, La Isla Bonita, and of course, hung up. When I was 20, my amazing coworker gifted me Sex for my birthday, which was, or is, a book of erotic photography and stories that Madonna made. So she even had to track it down on eBay, my coworker. So it definitely wasn't cheap. So I'm so grateful she did that. That was so sweet. And I absolutely love that book. I was drawn to it not just for the stunning photography, but for how it celebrates the diversity and excitement of sex. It showed me how sex can be more than physical. It can be performance. It can be emotional. It can become powerful, beautiful art. I also saw how she pushed boundaries on a society that I already thought had stupid rules. She was breaking them down and showed me it was okay to do so too, especially when it's about standing up for what you believe in. In this episode, I chat with Stefan from the popular MLVC Podcast, a podcast on everything Madonna, and we talk about what she's meant to us and pop culture. This is Mask Off for Mask, and I'm Vance. Stefan is one of the hosts of the very popular MLVC podcast discussing everything Madonna. He's traveled the world to see the Queen of Pop an astonishing 28 times or so, and even danced on stage with her for the Rebel Heart Tour. I wanted to bring him on to discuss Madge and what she's meant for us in our gay lives. Welcome, Stefan.
Hey.
How's it going?
I'm out of my element, Vance, because usually I'm the one controlling the podcast.
Yes, Stefan has a awesome podcast about Madonna and has awesome guests that Madonna's dancers, people who work with Madonna in the past. So I always check it out when you got cool guests on.
You've been a guest on the show?
Yes, and I was a guest. Yes, last year, about a year ago when we saw the Celebration tour, and I was in Montreal to see it. And
yes.
We discussed how the show went. Actually, it was funny when we filmed that podcast the night before we went out hard. And my friend was in the hotel room, still passed out. I was like, oh, I gotta get up and record this podcast. It was fine, but I was I was so hungover.
I would have never known that you were worse for wear. You seemed chipper and bright, and but I mean, come on, Madonna starts late when she does her shows, so you're gonna get home late and be tired, even if you weren't partying hard.
Yeah. I don't think she went on too late. I don't know if we had talked about this, but do you remember so we were in the pit. The one on, if you're facing the stage, the one on the right side. And so I was like, I should go.
Danceteria.
Yeah. And so I had to go pee. And I was like, should I go pee? I was like, maybe I'll go one more time. And I left. And I was I was still on the floor of the arena. And then the security was like, you can't go. And I was like, oh, can I go back to my spot? He's like, no, you can't move. And I was like, what? And I was like, oh, Bob is coming out. And now I'm stuck. And so I was like, oh God, I'm going to miss the show. But it was really funny because Bob came out then and Bob walked all the way to right in front of me. And I know I saw how you got to talk to him.
Yes.
But I was trying to get his attention because I was like, I don't know what to do. So I was like, sticking my tongue out. And I know he saw me and probably was like, oh, don't talk to him.
Yeah, he was fun. Yeah, I was wearing that super loud suit that I had Madonna's face stenciled all over it, and by designer Tom Fashions, wonderful designer. I had bought the suit and he custom printed it for me. So yeah, that was sort of an attention grabber, and I happened to my seat at the first Austin show. I was right on the aisle, and Bob passed by and clocked my suit, and so I helped open the show that night, which was fun. Yeah.
All right, before we get into more current Madonna, I want to start with, what is your first memory of when you saw Madonna, on TV or whatever, on radio?
There was a girl I went to elementary school with. She had a 5th grade birthday party, and that was around the time when all of the kids in school were starting their kissing parties, and 7 minutes in heaven, or spin the bottle, and the word was getting around that that's what we were doing at all of the birthday parties. And so at this one girl's birthday, all the parents messaged her, or called, I guess, because they had, we had to, back in the 80s, we had to physically call people, and told her parents that they didn't want these kissing activities to happen. So her parents chaperoned the whole party, and they gave us entertainment. And the entertainment was Madonna's Virgin Tour on Betamax. That was our entertainment. So we all had to sit and watch. And
how old are you at this point?
Old enough. How old was I? I think fifth grade is what? 10, 12? 12 maybe?
Okay.
I think 12
that's
12 years old.
Yeah, that's reasonable. Right? Is that what all 12-year-olds back
I think that's that. Look,
85?
That's what was happening. Yeah, that's what was happening back then. Yeah, 85. So, I guess 10. So I guess that is kind of young to be kissing. But I mean, it's not like we were like copying feels and like,
yeah.
I mean, it was very innocent because we were sort of just experimenting as, yeah. Anyway, that was the entertainment, was the Virgin Tour. And so that was the first time I saw him.
See, like, this is the thing so I was born in 89, right? So I don't know what it was actually like in the 80s and the early 90s when Madonna was, so like when she came out like a virgin, was that like, were people freaking out and being like, oh, this is so controversial?
So because I mean, I sort of peripherally knew about her. She was like ubiquitous in terms of like Madonna, Michael Jackson, George Michael, like those people were just like definition of the 80s. But I didn't have MTV, and I didn't really listen to the radio at that point because I was a kid, like, and I was like a true kid, like I was like more focused on like playing than I was on like trying to be an adult, like I was really like, I was still very like even though we were having kissing parties, like I guess that's the dichotomy of that is, like I was sort of starting to leave that innocence of childhood around that time. But yeah, I think I knew who Michael Jackson was more than I knew who Madonna was. But so I mean, again, maybe I knew of her, but I didn't like. She didn't resonate with me quite at that moment until watching the Virgin Tour. And she, the first song is Dress You Up, and she's coming down the stairs in that wonderful jacket and her 80s look. I mean, and she's absolutely gorgeous. And she starts singing Dress You Up, and I was just transfixed. Like, I don't know what it was about her. I think, the attitude, the colors that she was, the look, her, just her beauty. And we watched the whole thing. And then at the very end, she had filmed this like beautiful black and white footage of her talking about how like she went to New York and she had a dream and she wanted to be a big star. I worked really hard and my dream came true. I think that was the opening. And then at the end, they sort of like visit her where she's like talking, and then she just starts to laugh. And what they do is they loop her laugh over and over and over and over again. So it just keeps going. And my friend and I, at that party, thought that was hysterical, and we could not stop laughing at her laughing. And I was on board ever since. Like, then I was suddenly like, who is she? I had to find out. Like, I got all of her albums, and I mean, at the time that was 3. Like I think I got 3 albums.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been a fan ever since. I was, it was love at first sight.
See, like, it's funny because I was born in 89, that my first memories of Madonna would have been like Ray of Light was the first thing I remember seeing because I was aware in 97, 98 of music. But I remember my aunt was babysitting me, and my aunt she passed away like a long time ago, but she was kind of this hippie, bohemian type woman, like artist. Anyways, so she was babysitting us one day, and I remember Frozen was on TV, and I don't know what it brought up, but she started talking about Madonna and telling me and my sister when we're like, I guess it would have been like 7 years old or something. She was like, oh, like people like Madonna and Cher were these women who were like doing their own thing. And I don't know what I was thinking, but that was my first memory of like, oh, Madonna is this really cool woman. But I was introduced at Ray of Light, which was such a shift from Madonna. And so because, again, this is the 90s and I grew up out in the country where we didn't have internet, so I can't go back and search her back catalog. So I don't think I even knew of, like, I knew of Like a Prayer and Like a Virgin, all that stuff, but like I didn't know of Erotica. until I was like late in high school because I didn't even know it existed.
Right. Yeah.
Because I didn't have internet. There was nothing to find it. And as soon as I found erotica, because I was a Britney fan and I was like, oh, I love what Britney's doing. I love how sexual she was or is still. So when everyone was comparing Britney and Madonna, I was like, oh, yeah, I can see it. But again, Madonna was doing like music, Don't Tell Me was out and stuff. So it wasn't really hypersexual.
Right.
I liked it. But then when I discovered erotica and Justify My Love, I was like, oh my God, human nature. I was like, oh, this is the Madonna that I love.
Yeah, it's weird having grown up with it, because you sort of are just experience it as she's putting it out, as opposed to having a notion about who she is and then discovering things from the past to sort of like reflect on or whatnot. Like, we only knew stuff as it was coming and were part of the craziness and the controversy as they were happening, Like a Prayer, when that video premiered, it was crazy. It was, people's reactions to that were crazy. I went to a Christian school growing up, so like it was mentioned in our chapel the day that it came out. We as Christians and blah blah blah. And I was like, it was very challenging for me every time, loving her as a fan and then having these people like tell you that you shouldn't like her was very confusing for me because I didn't understand why. Like, they were reacting very badly to things that she was doing and I didn't quite understand what was so wrong with it. When erotica came out, I will say that sort of made me pause a little bit because I was in love with Vogue Madonna, like Vogue. When Vogue came out, I would Vogue anywhere people would pay attention, I was a suburbs kid and I would just Vogue anywhere. It was ridiculous. But then Justify My Love and erotica, like that Madonna shifted and she became something more dangerous and more almost scary in a way, as a young kid. You? Yes, yeah. as a young kid who, I was gay, but I was closeted even to myself at the time. I didn't know.
And religious then?
Ish, I was, just because I went to a religious school, but I to quote Madonna, I'm not religious, but it's.
Yeah.
But it was just weird. It was a weird time, like things that she was doing, like the erotica video, which was all those clips of her while she was photographing the sex book. I didn't like it. It made me uncomfortable, and because it was so unfamiliar and so like not safe, I guess, to me. Like, it just seemed like she had lost control. Like I didn't know what she was doing. Now I look back on it and I'm like, wow, that's kind of badass. Like, good for her for having done and had the courage to do something like that. And like, it's so ballsy. And when you look at the sex book, nobody would do that today. Nobody would like. Nobody was doing it then. Nobody would ever do it now. It just. I
can't imagine like Ariana Grande coming out with like an S&M sex book, and so like it was on brand for Madonna. Like again, I wasn't around then, but my history of going back on it is that I felt like she was pushing the boundaries, and I think she knew. This is what I admire about her from that time so much, is that she had so much integrity, because even with that sex book, like if you look at it, like even today, I'm like, this is so sex positive and fantasies and diverse and
beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful. It's beautiful art.
Stunningly gorgeous photographs.
Yeah, it's amazing. And so I'm like, oh, if I was her and making this beautiful art that's about sex, which is a natural thing that we all do that isn't a bad thing, and people are getting pissed off at you for it, good for her for holding her own and being like, fuck that. I'm not going to like apologize for like speaking up about things that are already happening. That's what like all these queers today don't like need to go back and see, like, this woman was standing up for like AIDS prevention when no one was wanting to touch that, right? And she was the biggest star in the world. So like this woman had balls, like, but she also was doing because she knew that she believed in these things.
Yeah, I think that's always the thing that I've respected the most about her, is how authentic it was. It wasn't performative. Nothing that she was doing was out of character for her, And I think what I love the most I've always respected this interview the most is when the Justify My Love controversy was erupting and MTV was banning the video. She went on ABC's Nightline, and I was in high school at the time, and of course, she, it was Madonna, and I was like, well, I have to stay up for this video. And so ABC's Nightline usually comes on at 11:30, I think, because it's like after the regular like local news. But there was a football game the night that they were putting her on, and the football game was in overtime. So it was like coming on even later. So I'm like, me and my mom stayed up to watch this interview. I don't think it came on to like midnight. But, again, we didn't have the internet back then. So, like, if you wanted to see something, you had to stay up live to watch it.
Yeah.
I recorded it, like, on VHS because I wanted, because they were playing the video and then they were going to interview her. And she is so effing smart in that video, the interview. And they are grilling her, and
This is for the video for Justify My Love, right? That
yeah. I mean,
interview?
you can Google it. Like, it's on Madonna Nightline, Justify My Love.
I remember she says when he's like, oh, and then you're going to make more money off of it. And she's like, yeah, good for me.
Yeah. But, she's defending herself, and she's very smart, and she's making absolute perfect sense, especially when she's like, why does MTV want to condemn my video? But she's like, let's be, if we're going to have censorship, let's have our degradation of women hour. Let's have our violence hour. And then let's have our sex hour, where it's like, because MTV was basically being hypocritical, like they were saying, no, Madonna, we can't play your video, but we'll do these videos where, rock bands are degrading women, or we'll do these videos where there's violence happening in that. And I think that's her point. It's like Americans were chastising her for being sex positive, whether it be in Justify My Love or whether it be in the erotica or sex book. But yet we're totally fine watching these horrific movies of violence and horror and exposing children to that. Why are we okay with that? It's a weird dichotomy where we're like, you're fine watching people gun down other people, but two consenting adults having a loving relationship, like Brokeback Mountain, I just recently saw an interview where like some journalist was interviewing Heath Ledger when he was doing the promo for that movie. And the journalist was like, I'm offended by this. And Heath Ledger was basically like, well, dude, this is two loving individuals. Why are you offended? He's like, just don't go to see the movie,
Yeah. But even I think Madonna in the 80s, her friends were all these queer artists, right? Like Keith Haring was her friend, right? And so I understand how she would, this wasn't just about like, oh, I'm going to speak up because it's going to get a lot of attention, or it was like, these were her friends. Like this was her life too, right? And these people that she knew. And so she cared about it. Yeah. When you were a kid and you were seeing Madonna do sex and all that stuff and erotica, how did you deal with it when it was scaring you? Did it change how you thought about sex?
I guess. I was very not aware of that stuff in life. Madonna was breaking down the door and like introducing, people to it. And the sex book is although it's sex positive, it's also very safe. Like there's nothing gratuitous to me in the sex book. It's not raunchy in any way. There's some puzzling setups of like, what is she doing with those two women? Or, like what's happening here? And so I think it makes you question.
There is that one picture of her like almost rimming that guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that's a beautiful photo.
Tony biting Tony Ward's bottom. Yeah.
Is that Tony Ward in that picture? Yeah. You just see his ass. That's why.
Yeah. No, the one because it's the same setup where she's biting on his nipple ring, and then later, it's her biting his bottom. Youth. Like they were all so young and beautiful at that point. I don't know. Though. I didn't really have like. I guess at that age, we weren't really talking to each other as friends about like, what is she doing? What does this mean about sex? What do we think? We weren't having those conversations because we were still young. And I wasn't having those conversations with my friends about sex and whatnot, but it was like, we would sort of just laugh it off, like, what is she doing? Huh? Like it was because it was making us uncomfortable in our own bodies. And we were sort of, left to figure out things. And definitely I spent my time turning pages in the sex book for sure. It's a hot book. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, I always say this about Madonna and the way that I felt I got inspired by my sexuality or whatever is that I saw this woman, Madonna, who was expressing her sexuality in the way that a man would,
Mm.
right? In being hypersexual, talking about like sex as pleasure and having multiple partners, experimenting, which to me is like so healthy. But to see a woman do it, I think was so like, I always think if I had seen a man doing all that stuff, I would have a different opinion on like that. Oh, that's the way I'm supposed to be. And sometimes when a man does it, it's all about like power. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing that. Well, with Madonna, it is as well. But women aren't allowed to do that, right? Or at the time, they definitely weren't allowed to do that, right? So I was seeing this woman like take a lot of shit for being sexual, for being a human being, for being a
Mm-hmm.
woman. And I was like, oh, that's what it is. It's about like finding your authentic sexuality. Because we're not, I mean, we are, but like most of society is like shaming her for it.
For sure.
But even that's like when I was in love with Britney, or so in love with Britney, but when she was starting to get provocative and sexual, like, even then it was like, oh, she's not allowed to do this. And she was nothing compared to what Madonna was doing. Or even just like the kiss between Madonna and Britney, which I thought was so sexy, so well done. I love that performance. But again, it was like now they're lesbians
Right.
and Britney's a slut. I expected it from Madonna, but not her. And I just was that, but that's all the stuff that I loved about them is I was like, yes, please piss off all these people because these people are fucking idiots. Like this stuff is natural, it's normal, it's beautiful, it's art, it's
Mm-hmm.
sexy, it's all that good stuff. And like, oh, if it offends a bunch of fucking prudes, like good.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree. I think part of being a Madonna fan is you have to get used to defending her and what's the shit that she's taking from people because of her decisions. But I've always loved that. I mean, everything that she's doing is championing love and acceptance and diversity and freedom of expression and self-authenticity. Like it's all positive messaging, which is why I never quite understood why then people were sort of like wagging a finger at her and being like, you shouldn't be doing this, because I'm like, well, why? She's not hurting anyone. Not, like everyone's having a great time, like she's releasing these wonderful dance songs or there's just wonderful music in general, and I'm like, why is this being told that it's bad? Meanwhile, like the things that I was being taught sometimes in Bible school, where it's like you can only do this, you can only, like, it was so filled with so many restrictions, and so whereas like Madonna was like, be free, like,
Yeah,
go
yeah,
have fun, and I'm like, well, I kind
yeah,
of like this better than I like
yeah,
what
yeah.
they're telling me in Bible class.
But that's because so many people are, especially then, people are trapped in this way of living that's like if you grow up in a really religious environment where you're told that you're going to go to hell if you don't behave and do all these things, you're not going to be able to be like looking at Madonna, or maybe you would, but you wouldn't be able to look at Madonna and be like, oh my God, I'd rather do what she's doing. You'd be so like in your trauma of like, oh, I can't be that. So I'm just going to be pissed off at her for being free and shame everyone else for being free because I
Mm-hmm.
can't do that myself, right? Which is like everyone can step into this space of feeling like more of themselves. But I mean, she's an example as well as someone who was herself and took shit for it. So I think that's why people are so scared to do what she's done. I mean, she's there nowadays. I think that like I always think too with Madonna now, I'm like, I don't even know if she would do something that would, like, there's nothing she'll do that will match like the controversy of Sex Book and all that.
No, and I think the reason is because she is and bear with me for a second. She is not relevant in the way that she was at the peak of her career, which to me was around like 1990. Like to me,
Mhm.
1990 was peak Madonna because everyone was on board with her at that moment. It wasn't then until Justify My Love that there was a bit of division. I mean, I guess Like a Prayer, the controversy of Like a Prayer, but even still, she sort of like surpassed that controversy and became even bigger with Vogue to the point where, like, again, it was worldwide acclaim. And that's when, like, the peak sort of crescendoed and she started going downward because people weren't on board with the Justify My Love video. And then people definitely weren't on board with the erotica song, sex book. Like, that's when her sort of like her status started to crumble, you know, like when people stopped playing her on the radio and people were like, we're not playing this on MTV. And I think that was challenging for her as an artist. She's still pushing boundaries today, and I love that she's still producing art and still pushing the boundaries of what it means to be a pop star at 66 years old, you know, like 41 years into a career. And to be as relevant as she is, you know, like people say she's not relevant anymore. I'm like, well, I think she's still making headlines and still able to, like, you know, people are still putting her on the covers of like major fashion mags, and she's still working with top tier talent, and that's relevance. It might not be Sabrina Carpenter style relevance where like the youth of America loves who she is. You know, like my nieces and nephew don't give a shit. You know, like they don't care who she is. They know that I like her, but I'm sure to them she's just some old woman, you know. But if she was to do something like, say she did a sequel to the sex book, she would never get the attention or the scandal because she's already done it. You know what I mean? Like you see artists today doing things that she did back, you know, 30 years ago. And it's like, oh, this doesn't seem scandalous at all because Madonna already did it. You know what I mean? Like, even if somebody was to do a naked book like she did, people wouldn't bat an eye. You know what I mean? Because it's already been done. Like and so I guess if anything, she's basically softened the blow for anyone to do anything. Like I always think of like, what is it? WAP, wet ass pussy. You know, like when that came up. I mean, it was controversial, but they were playing the video. The song was on the radio. You know, like people, it wasn't like people were like boycotting the people who sang that song and that, you know, like, but again, Madonna comes out with like Justify My Love or erotica. And it's like, oh, no. You know, it's weird to think that, you know, she's sort of done the job that she intended, which was to break down those stereotypes and break down the walls between what you should and shouldn't do publicly, I guess.
Yeah, I think the conversation on her relevance is, it's just, you know, I always think Madonna is one of the few women out there that as an artist can still go on like an arena tour and all that stuff like Paul McCartney could or Bob Dylan could or whatever, right? Someone that men can do that all the time, right? And there's very few women at that age that do that. Maybe her and Cher.
Well, I mean, if you think of somebody like maybe like Barbra Streisand.
Yeah.
I mean, Cyndi Lauper's doing her farewell tour.
Yeah.
I mean, Stevie Nicks is still performing, but very different than how Madonna, like if you think about like Celebration, Madonna had a whole segment where all she wore was a red negligee. Like that was her outfit on stage, a red negligee. And that's ballsy at then 65. That be your costume. I mean, she's not covered up. You know, she's just putting her body out there. And
well, that's like I'm happy that when she came out with Celebration, when the tour was on, that I was like, oh, good, she's showing skin. Because there was like a time that was like maybe MDNA where I was like, she's putting on more clothing and covering up more. And even at the time of like MDNA in her early phase, she was like, okay, do you remember MDNA tour when she started it, where the whole section in the show where she does like turn up the radio and open your heart, and anyways, but she started the tour with no sleeves. Then like a few shows in, she added sleeves. And I think it was because she was getting criticized for her arms being too like toned and veiny. Do you remember that picture of her that was like, it was in the mid 2000s or something. I don't know what time it was from, but she's carrying like grocery bags and her arms are just like, I mean, she's a very toned woman and she's very slim. So she's not like this full voluptuous body.
Right.
She's just very toned and lean. And so they took this picture and it's just this bad picture of how like veiny and
well, they also Photoshop a lot of that stuff sometimes.
Yeah,
I think.
But
MDNA tour, she did that whole segment where she was just in that bustier. Remember?
Yeah.
Well, she's on the piano and she's like showing her ass. She's like, it's just like stockings and a bustier, and she looked beautiful.
She does. She did look beautiful, but then even if you see in the DVD or whatever of the MDNA tour, that whole section is pretty much in black and white. And so there is an element of I'm like, I feel like she's kind of hiding the imperfections of her age. Not even imperfections. She's just hiding her age. She just released that funeral rites video, whatever, with Stephen Klein. And this guy I follow, Leo Herrera, who does a lot of content creation and writer and stuff. But he was commenting on it that I can't remember what he said, but something about like Madonna in the way that she presents herself, especially on social media in these highly edited photos, that like Madonna is kind of this, she's edited herself to be like, to look ageless and perfect. And my one issue, I think the photos are beautiful and stuff, but it's almost gotten to the point where it's almost CGI looking because it's so edited. And I'm like, I want to see your skin and your wrinkles and see how like you're still performing, you're still working, you're still in amazing shape. Like she's not even that old in the context of, age. She's in her 60s. That's not that old.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I wish she would be even more open in talking about like sex and all these things and how she does feel about her body. Because I'm sure as the woman who was so famous for being so sexual and naked all the time and beautiful, that I'm sure that there's a vulnerability with her that feels like, wow, aging was super hard in that industry, in that world, because she was criticized since she was like 30 for being too old.
So as a Madonna podcaster, over the last 7 years, I learned very quickly when we started the show back in 2019 that it was not very smart of me to be a man talking about what a woman should or shouldn't do with her body in public. And so a lot of people would comment, you don't really have a right to say what, and I agree. As a man, I shouldn't be out there saying Madonna should do this, Madonna should do that, in terms of like how she presents her image or her body. She can do whatever she wants in terms of like how she wants to present herself. I personally loved being able to see her in person at the Celebration tour because it was unfiltered. And she looked gorgeous and amazing and real. I mean, as I get older, I also appreciate a good filter. And I think if I was being photographed by Stephen Klein for the cover of, a new magazine, I would probably ask for some airbrushing and I mean, I Photoshop my own pictures, but we'll do homage photos for the podcast. If we're paying tribute to an album or something, we'll like recreate an image that she had done for the same era. And I have to Photoshop myself because I'm like, oh, Stefan, you're looking a little rough today. So yeah, but I hear you and I know what you mean. It's like, I think it would help other people embrace their own aging and their own mortality if she was able to be upfront about her own experience. But at the same time, she doesn't really owe us that, like we might want her to, but she doesn't have to. And who knows, like, I mean, we might be comfortable with our bodies and our skin and how we look publicly right now in our current age, but we also do not know what it's like to live the experience of this woman where her image has been the thing that has kept her out in public. Like the scrutiny of getting that for the last 40 some years must be a very strange thing to reckon with on a daily basis. And
oh yeah, I couldn't imagine being any of those people that are at that level of fame and attention. So of course, I'm not expecting her to be like doing an interview talking about all her issues and stuff and what she struggled with. But I want to continue to see Madonna still feel sexual and feel like erotic in her body and in her art, because that's what I love. I mean, even when I think of like Madame X, when that was released, and I love that album. I always forget about it. I always would listen to Madonna. It never like pops up on my Madonna playlist, and so it's like, oh, I love this album, but it's not like
it's not a go-to.
Provocative.
It's not a go-to album for me. Beautiful, wonderful songs, and I think in like 10 years we'll all be able to really reappreciate Madam X for what it was and for what she did, and I think that's part of her brilliance. But yeah, it wasn't boundary pushing in a way, and I think we all want that. Like we want her to be that like provocative Madonna, and
I know it was so the Madam X era was, I feel like, a mess because so I was supposed to go see, I mean, I saw that show twice in Chicago, but I was supposed to see it in New York, fifth row. And I love the whole theater tour. I thought that was amazing that she was doing these theater residencies. But so I was supposed to see it in New York, and I think were we like the last night that she was in New York or something? I don't remember. Anyways, I'm in New York, I'm getting ready for the show. It's like, I don't know, 6:00 or something. And I get a phone call from Ticketmaster. And I was like, Ticketmaster, why are they phoning me? And then it's a recording that I was like, it was like a trauma experience on the phone because it was very vague and being like, the show was, it didn't just say the show has been canceled. It was like, the show is postponed or something. And I was like, what is this? And then I look on Instagram and Madonna makes a post being like, I have to cancel tonight's show. I'm so sorry. But I was devastated because I have never seen Madonna in New York. And that was like, I can't believe I'm seeing Madonna in New York.
Did she I don't remember her canceling that late in the run. Because I saw the last New York show before she left New York. I didn't realize she'd canceled the night before. Huh.
It was sometime in New York, but I'm pretty sure we were the first. That was the first one she canceled.
Well, then you must have been coming to see very early in the run because she canceled. She canceled the first couple of shows in New York because they weren't ready, and so it wasn't the last show. You must have been trying to see her in the very beginning of the run, because that happened. There was people who flew in from all over the world to see the opening night, and she canceled like the first 3 shows and rescheduled them for later, and people were devastated. I mean, like sitting on the steps of BAM, crying their eyes out.
I know. Well, I'd always thought that, like, because, I've seen a lot of concerts and tours, and every time that, like, one show gets canceled, I'm like, oh my God, that would suck so bad. Like, you travel to a place, you're excited to see the show, and then you're like, oh my God, what the fuck am I supposed to do? I have a trip plan. Yeah. I was already there. So, like...
Yeah, there's nothing you can do. It's just like, it's out of your control.
Yeah.
I mean, that happened to my co-host Liberty and I. We had planned to go see the opening night of Celebration Tour in Vancouver, and we booked our hotel and we booked we had bought our tickets and booked our flight, and then Madonna ended up in the hospital, and the tour got postponed and we didn't know what was going to happen, but then they rescheduled all the shows, and suddenly London was the first night of the show and Vancouver was postponed, and we're like, well, we were only going to Vancouver because it was opening night. We're not going to like make the trip to Vancouver to see her in the middle of the run. So we had to, but yeah, I mean, I think I lost money on the flight. We were able to get the hotel and we got reimbursed on the tickets, but yeah, I mean, it sucks.
Yeah.
It's at least we weren't there when it happened, I would have been like so pissed if we were like in Vancouver, but
well,
hey,
it
is what it is.
After that, it was like Russian roulette. Like every second show, she was canceling.
Yeah, she was in pain. That was when she was having like her hip knee issues were like really
well, she had to get a hip
her.
replacement. But so, do you think it would have been better if for the people who are going to see the show? Do you think it would have been better if she had just canceled the whole thing and was like, "This is pointless to be doing this to the people that are coming to see the show"? Or do you think it was good of her to... There was a part of it that I was like, whoa, she is pushing herself so hard because obviously she's in pain.
Yeah.
And she could just cancel the tour and be like, I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
But she was just pushing through and being like, I'm going to modify the show. I'm going to do all these things differently. I'm going to cancel every 2 or 3 shows to like take a break. And I was like, this feels just like...
It was rough.
It felt messy.
I felt bad for the people who were being affected by it. Luckily, I was living in New York at the time, so I was very easily able to like take the subway to the Brooklyn Academy of Music and see the show. And yeah, but I did feel bad for the cancellations. It's tough. It's tough, especially when you're already there and she's canceling mere hours before. Like people were already in the venue for some of the shows, and she was canceling. And for that, it's
I don't remember that.
Yeah, I mean that's rough, it's rough for them because you've already gotten there. So yeah, I mean, again, coulda, woulda, shoulda, who knows?
Yeah. Oh yeah, and then so when Celebration happened and I was like it was summer and I had rearranged these plans and stuff and I was gonna go for Pride in Montreal too and then she canceled and I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I can't believe she's doing this to me again. I know it's not her fault, but I was like, how is this happening to Madonna again? Like every time I feel like I'm going to see Madonna now, it's like there's all this extra stress that's involved with it.
But so yes, Celebration Tour did the US and North American dates did get rescheduled to after the European leg. However, from the moment she started that tour in London, she did not cancel one show. She did every single show from start to finish. And I thought, okay, considering the fact that she almost died, basically had a near-death experience, and then still went on tour 4 months later, that's pretty ballsy, like most people would have been like, nope, I can't do it. But I think she would have lost way too much money if she can't just flat out canceled.
Canceled.
I mean, I think any of her profit that she was supposed to make on that tour, she lost because of the reschedule, because she had to keep everybody on hold for 4 months or 3 months, whatever it was, while she recovered. And, she had to hold them, and extend them. So, I mean, I think she didn't make any money on that tour, basically. So,
I'm amazed that she did that after almost dying and like pretty quick after. Like it was what was it in June or July?
I think it was July and then September.
And October was the first show.
3 months basically. I mean, and she was back to rehearsing well before that. So
oh yeah.
Yeah.
See, like I think that's when I was growing up and watching her, that was the other thing. Like I always say this about my life is that I honestly don't think I would be where I'm at if it wasn't for Madonna, because she was this person that I looked up to that I was like, what would Madonna do? Madonna would work fucking hard. Madonna would do this. And I also come from I've come from a rural middle class family where, everyone is just regular people. No one does these amazing things in life. And so for me, I looked up to her and was like, oh, it's possible to be this person, just work really hard. And there's been like instances in my life where I've said, like, I've come up to something really difficult, especially when it comes to work and like any career stuff. And I've thought, like, what would Madonna do? Like, I remember one time I was working for this guy and I was getting taken advantage of, and I knew it. And everyone was telling me that I was getting taken advantage of, like, I wasn't getting paid enough, all this stuff. I remember one day, and I had just gotten my Express Yourself tattoo, like a couple days before. And so I was working for this guy in the morning, and he was just being an ass to me. And I was like, I'm not even getting paid enough for this bullshit. So I went for lunch, and I was coming home, and I was so fucking mad. And I was like, what does it say on your arm? I'm not your bitch. Don't hang your shit on me. So like I went back into work and was like, I need to talk to you. I am not getting paid enough for this job. And then he was like, okay, bye then. And I was like, what? And I got fired. And so, but I was like thinking about, I was like, Madonna would not be getting paid less than minimum wage to do this bullshit job. So like and every time that I've had to come up to something that was like, okay, you got to pull out this inner strength that you're feeling really insecure in this moment. What would Madonna do? Just be Madonna. And I shift into this into what I think that she would do and to have the balls to be able to do it. Because I'm like, I'm not going to get further in life if I don't have that integrity and speak up for myself, right? And so she's kind of been this guiding light of, what is the right thing to do in this moment? What do I believe in? What do I feel I deserve? What am I worth? Right. And I think that that's what she's expressed in how she's done things and how she's done her career. So I'm like,
sure.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, anyone who thinks that she's gotten to where she is by not being in charge, I mean, like, she's in charge of her career. She's in charge of making the decisions and what she does. And that's
like,
that's respectful,
Yeah. When I was actually at Madam X, I was sitting next to this young guy who, I can't remember, he was like from Alabama or something, I don't know. And whatever, was in love with Madonna, talking about Madonna, and he came there by himself. And then he started talking about how like he lives with his parents and his parents are like, or his dad is an asshole or something. And it just sounded awful. And I was thinking, it was like, be Madonna. Like, what are you doing still living with these people? gain some balls like Madonna and be like, fuck this shit. Like, you don't have to do this. And so I always look at people like that and I'm like, these other Madonna fans, I'm like, you need to be inspired by what this woman does and feel that you can do it too, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you have enough money to go see Madonna, you
Yeah.
certainly have enough money to move out of the house, right?
Yeah.
Because her tickets are not cheap.
Yeah. So how do you see yourself being like Madonna?
Good.
Or do you?
Good. I don't know if I've ever sort of thought, oh, I'm like Madonna, or like, I mean, I like to think that I am forward and direct and I express myself. I mean, I guess I embody her in terms of creativity. I think that's ultimately where I come. Like I respect her artistry. I expect her creativity, and I am constantly trying to challenge myself through my art. And like I'm a photographer. Obviously, I have my podcast. I produce music. So I think there's elements of that but in terms of like maybe like the freedom fighter that Madonna tends to be, I mean, I will always stand up for the same type of things that she does, like diversity and freedom and love and expression and LGBTQ rights. And I think that's sort of my parallel with Madonna is on par. But I mean, she's a Leo, I'm a Gemini. We're kind of different, I'm a man, she's a woman, like I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I do, appreciate her taste in men. I mean, she's always got hot guys in her videos. So I appreciate that.
I mean, another thing I love about her is that her, like Cher, dates all these younger men when, women weren't doing that as well, right? And there was like this stigma on an older men date younger women all the time, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what I mean about when I look at Madonna. I'm like, she's got a lot of masculine traits.
Mm-hmm.
And which is why people were uncomfortable with a woman being able to be like, fuck this shit. I'm not going to listen to these rules about what a woman can do. If a man can do it, I can do it too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's how I see myself in her still as like, even as a man, I'm like, whoa, she's doing all the things that I feel like a strong man would do.
Yeah, she challenges the status quo, basically. Like if society, like she's challenging societal norms, she's challenging heteronormative rules, she's challenging the roles of what a woman should or shouldn't be. I mean, I love her. It's been it's a strange relationship to have with somebody that you don't personally know. I mean, yeah, I've met her in person a couple of times, but it's been in a performative way, like it's been part of a show. So it's not like we're sitting down and having tea and getting to know one another. But I respect her as an artist. I respect her. I mean, I'm so jealous that she gets to do her art as a career, like to be able to experience her life. I mean, obviously having her money would be great too, but like I wouldn't shake a stick at that. I guess I'm so jealous that like she gets paid for her art and that's what she does for a living, like that's just that's so wonderful. And so I'm so envious of that.
Yeah. Well, that's a good place to start to wrap this up. But I want to ask you one question. What are you excited for most in your life right now?
I'll stay on
Madonna stuff coming up.
I was going to say, I'll stay on brand with the conversation and say that Madonna is meant to be releasing a sequel to her Confessions on a Dance Floor album.
Yes.
That's the theory. She's teased that. So I'm looking forward.
How do you feel about that?
I'm excited. I think her and Stuart Price they're magic together. I love Stuart Price as a music producer. I trust in his artistry and I trust in him and Madonna making some really great music. I think the thing I always ask for when there's a new Madonna album coming out is I just want beautiful, anthemic, upbeat music. And I believe that the two of them will be able to do that. So, I mean, I'm hoping it's an album. She's not confirmed that it's an album. So I'm hoping it's not just like, here's a couple of songs. Like, I hope it's like a full, proper album. But yeah, I think that's something I'm looking forward to that. And then I also have a banner birthday coming up this year.
Birthday?
The big five. The big five. Yeah. So it's,
when is that?
This summer. It's coming up in June.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Are you doing something big for it then?
Planning to White Lotus it in Sicily.
Oh yeah, that's amazing.
Not go to the White Lotus, but like go
Yeah,
places.
yeah,
No, because
yeah,
I don't have the money to. I don't have the money to afford a White Lotus hotel. Like, maybe
yeah,
we'll like go have tea at the White Lotus hotel, but
yeah,
I'll be like at that like Best Western Sicily.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Well, thank you for doing this. It was
Yeah.
awesome to chat about Madonna, as always.
Yes, of course. Hey, that's how I live my life, right? I figured, if I'm going to talk about, I talk about Madonna anyway. I figured why not podcast about it? So if
Yeah,
anyone on
yeah,
your list, if any of your listeners
yeah.
want to tune in, MLVC Podcast, we're findable on YouTube and any audio platform, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts, basically. MLVC, the Madonna Podcast, your place for all things Madonna Louise, Veronica Ciccone.
Yeah, and it's an amazing podcast. If you're a Madonna fan, go check it out because he's got really cool
Yeah, we've had
guests.
some great guests, directors, choreographers, backup dancers, backup singers who have worked with her throughout her career, and then fans.
I mean, fans
fans such as yourself from around the world, and we have it's been great. And we then just do like general Madonna conversations, like. Mm-hmm. What's she up to today? That type of thing.
I mean, you even had like a reunion of the Girly Show dancers,
Yeah, we
right?
did the Girly Show 30th anniversary.
It was Nikki and Donna and that too?
Nikki, Donna,
yeah,
almost every single backup dancer, musician. We've not yet had Madonna on the show. Mm-hmm. One day, fingers crossed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but she does know about the show. I told her about it during Madame X when I sat and talked with her. Yeah. When we were sitting and talking right before she went back up on stage, I was like, "Oh, Madonna." And I gave her my business card. I was like, I host a podcast dedicated entirely to you. And she's like, what? She's turning the business card around. It was dark. She couldn't really see. I was like, yeah, it's a podcast and it's all about you. And she was like, okay. That's all she said.
I remember actually one of the shows I was at for Madame X when she was sitting next to the guy. And the guy was he was from London and he said, "Oh, I live where your house is, like nearby." And she's like, "Where do you live?" And he said, he's like, "By the airport." And Madonna's like, "I do not live by the airport." It was so funny.
Yeah, she was in rare form during Madame X.
Yeah. Well, so I just want to ask this, curious. When you're talking to like Nikki and Donna and these dancers and the fact that you sat next to Madonna, that not little boy, that kid who is watching Like a Virgin at a birthday party, like, could you ever imagine that you would have had those experiences with her?
No, and I think that's what's been so rewarding about doing the show. And I didn't think that would ever. I mean, when we thought about podcasting, me and my original co-host, when we decided to start the podcast, I mean, we never thought we'd be able to speak to these people who danced with her or worked with her. I mean, I never in a million years thought, the 15-year-old kid dancing to Vogue all summer in 1990. I never once thought that I would have the privilege to be taken up on stage and dance with her during the Rebel Heart tour. I mean, that was an out of body experience and something that I cherish forever. And I'll look back at like the video of it and be like, I can't believe that happened. It's crazy. But yeah, I mean, I will say when I got to go up on stage with her during that show, it sounds sort of silly and cliche, but it was like, I felt like I was in the right place in the world. I was like, this is where I'm meant to be.
Yeah.
At least for the moment, I'm not a performer like Madonna, or definitely not a singer, but I think to have been there, it was sort of like a divine intervention moment, and like the stars just aligned at the right place at the right time. And it's fun. I don't get nervous really talking to people because I think after that moment, dancing on stage with Madonna, sort of the wall between her being this idol of Madonna, sort of like that wall broke down, and now because I realized I'm like, oh, we're interacting in the same space, like she's just a person just like me.
Yeah.
So now, but I mean, I respect her as an artist and I respect her career and as a woman and as a fighter of LGBTQ rights. And yeah, I mean, she's amazing. She's amazing. And I'm glad that she's still with us to keep pushing boundaries and keep producing art. And I'm excited to see what she's going to do for us in 2025.
Well, thanks for doing this again. And
You're
go
welcome.
check out Stefan's podcast. And thanks a lot.
Thanks, everybody.